Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Premier Sim Gaming Leagues for the final race of Season 27 here in the PlayStation F3 tier. And it's a traditional home of many final races, many championship finales. Both championships are sorted here in F3, but it should still be some cracking action for round 12 out of 12, the Japanese Grand Prix at the historic Suzuka circuit. And for one final time this season, it is myself, Luke Etheridge, and Sam Thompson bringing you through the action. Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great this evening, and we finally made it. Final round of the season. Unfortunately, we don't have a championship battle to really talk about. Both constructors and drivers are now tied up. However, I did say in the F3 chat, and I feel like we're going to get it here tonight by the looks of things. I did say give it your all tonight. Just go out there and put in the best performance you can. And I think it has inspired a few people, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. Obviously, as we're still not underway, we'll be underway very shortly with it, but I'm doing brilliantly tonight. I cannot wait. End of season vibes, and yeah, at a track like Japan, who knows what can happen. We've seen many brilliant races here, and obviously I want to pick out one famous race that we obviously know, and that's the 2005 Japanese Grand Prix, which saw Kimi Raikkonen come from 17th to win the race in the end. That was a remarkable race that I had to recap the other day.
Yeah, probably one of the few times in my life I thought that I've woken up at 5:30 in the morning, and it has been absolutely 100% worth it. If last week is anything to go by, though, the fact that we haven't got any Drivers' Championship battle at least shouldn't really mean any less action. It was a fantastic race last time around. Simon took his first win on track, but a 5-second penalty from a previous race meant he got demoted down a place, and it was Joey who took his first race of the season. Championship leader and championship winner M Short could only finish in 15th as he was experimenting with no line, but Black Phoenix finishing third was good enough for McLaren to secure the championship. We could have another mixed up grid again today and a mixed up race because a lot of the drivers, of course, are experimenting with no line, getting ready for next season.
Oh yeah, definitely. I do expect that. I don't believe Japan's on the calendar next year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I mean, it definitely is going to be an interesting one tonight. Obviously, a bunch of drivers wanting to be in this tier next year. They'll have to go no line, of course, and they'll have to turn the line off. For some people who call themselves elitists, I guess, say the Rainbow Snake, but we're not going to talk about it too much, really. And I think we're going to be in for an interesting one tonight. M Short is going to be an interesting one to see. Obviously, the champion, as you said, experimenting with no line last week out, and interestingly, Chappellele on the intermediates. But back to what I was saying about the no line sort of thing, I do expect a bunch more drivers perhaps trying it out, seeing how it's going. And, well, I've experienced no line because I've done a little bit. Didn't really stick to it, unfortunately, but this is one of the more, I guess, easier tracks. So in terms of M Short, for example, we are probably going to see a typical M Short, but if he does get hit pole here tonight, then he's definitely back on his game where he was with lines. So he's looking for a good season ender. I think everyone is. We'll just have to wait and see, really. There's going to be a lot of people looking for it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be hoping to end the season on a high. Let's go on board with them Black Phoenix for a lap around the Suzuka circuit. First used in 1987, as we said, has seen many title battles and title deciders over the years. In its first 4 seasons, heading now in towards the first curve, this very tricky braking zone. There you have to brake and turn as you head into the S's, and this really does test the downforce of a modern Formula 1 car. Still an extreme challenge, even with these high downforce cars. You've got no chance of going high full throttle all the way through, and you do have to be very careful indeed, feathering the throttle and feathering the brake. Just running a bit wide through Dunlop curve there, nearly caught him out. Now into one of the few places where you can invalidate. The first Degner and the second Degner do have to be really careful here. The gravel runoff ready to snare you if you do make a mistake, and it looks like Black Phoenix is backing off his lap, but we'll still let him take us around as he now heads into the hairpin. Kamui Kobayashi made a few overtakes there into 2010. It is possible, as long as the driver ahead of you sees you coming, then this long right-hander through here. I expect to see the drivers dicing for position out of the hairpin along here, but it is pretty much almost single file only, as Sebastian Vettel found out, into the spoon curve, the double apex left-hander here. Then leads you downhill ever so slightly before you start climbing towards the crossover point, the only figure of 8 circuit used in Formula 1 as you pass over the circuit on the bridge just about now before the entry into 130R. Modern Formula 1, straightforward, fast left-hander. All about getting the exit right, though, and all about getting the entry right into possibly the best overtaking opportunity on the track. The chicane at the exit at the Casio Triangle. Then the bump has been removed. Black Phoenix heads into the pit, so fastest so far is Cornet on a 126.036. We are probably not going to see too many track limit penalties around this track, purely because there's so many old-fashioned runoff areas, there's so much grass and gravel, that if you do put all four wheels off the track, at most places, you're probably going to lose a big chunk of time.
Yeah, I don't see seeing too many penalties being dished out. I don't think Black Phoenix got a penalty. The main areas where you can get penalties really are just through, I think the first thing there, if you go a little bit wide, you can pick one up, and also you can also, I think, on the exit the second one as well. But despite that, there's not really any sort of places to get a penalty. But this track is definitely one of my sort of favourite tracks. It's very fast flowing. Obviously, it's one of those traditional tracks and everything, very technical, quite tight, and sometimes we do see a little bit of stale racing, of course, in real life. But it's definitely a track, a driver's track, as perhaps people may put it. But we're seeing a lot of times incoming now, and obviously, as we said, we're not going to see too many invalidations or penalties being dished out on the race, and I think that's a good thing, because a lot of drivers perhaps will be feeling they can put in their most and get momentum on their side here tonight. And I think Faz will be looking quite good for that, even though a poor race in Abu Dhabi. Because for the rest of the races recently in the second half of the season, he's done pretty well.
Yeah, he has indeed, as he now heads towards the finish line. We'll see what the Renault driver can do, and it's good enough to put him into 6th position. He has done fairly well indeed, 6th in the championship at the moment on 40 points. We did say there was no big title battle, but there is still a bit of a battle for the 3rd place in the championship. The man who is currently in 3rd place in the championship, Joey, isn't here tonight. He's got 61 points, 16 of them with his win last time out. Lars is currently 4th on 59. Black Phoenix is 5th on 51, so there is that mini battle to go on about. There's also pretty close between Mercedes, Racing Point and Red Bull in the constructors on 90, 87 and 76 respectively, as they are fighting for 3rd place in that. Let's go on board then with the champion of F3. He hopes to be moving up divisions next year, as he isn't using any assists for the 10 race season 28. Sign-ups for that have now closed, and we'll be starting off the season with Bahrain Short, which should be a very interesting track indeed. But let's see what M Short can do here then, as he heads into the chicane, heavy on the brakes, locking up the front right, no problem whatsoever, making it towards the apex. That bump, every single driver was so relieved when they first played F1 2020 and they realised that bump no longer exists. It was the bane of everyone's existence on previous F1 games.
Oh, definitely. I can't really count how many times really that has screwed my lap up completely or lost me loads of time. And I think some people even just took the initiative just to go around the outside and avoid the bump, to be honest, because it was really not a pleasant thing to go through. But M-Shot backing out of his lap at the end of it. I wonder if he was just trying to see what sort of pace he wants to go for, I guess. And I suspect that means there's no rain on the way in some sense, because surely he's not going to back out the lap if there was rain. So I think he just wanted to see perhaps what lap time can he do theoretically, and perhaps just sit back for a little bit, relax, and perhaps go again or something. Unless he made a mistake, of course. His teammate has just started a lap. That would be Black Phoenix. Be interested to see how he could do on his lap. Still yet to settle up. Only 4 drivers now, remarkably, not to settle up. I'm pretty sure that's like the earliest we've ever seen that, to be honest, because no one's been invalidating at all.
Yeah, they all are heading out on track pretty quickly, so I agree with you. M-Short's decision to slow down at the finish line suggests that there is no rain coming. I don't think you'd be going for the alternate strategy around here. It is not overly powerful, but because it is a fairly difficult track to overtake on, so you're not really likely to make up too many places as the race goes on. Black Phoenix, he's decided that he is going no line next season, so he's already apologised if he ends up taking anyone out here, so don't be surprised if he's a bit too cautious maybe on the first lap. We have got a new driver racing tonight, TTG Venoms, making his first appearance, and only appearance obviously, in F3 this season as a reserve, replacing Joey. He's done a 125.769, a very good debut indeed. Black Phoenix just running slightly wide at Spoon there, and you do see that quite a few times. As soon as you start running wide at Spoon, you seem to get sucked off towards the barrier, and you really have to slow down to avoid A, invalidating, and B, having a big crash.
I mean, yeah, this corner is very difficult as we see Cornet raking through it, and this is the exit really as well of the corner. If you get too much on the AstroTurf, you could really be in the wall. You're very close to the barriers really come the exit of that corner on the left and the right of the circuit, and a quick spin can really ruin your lap as Benny there awkwardly in the way from Cornet, but I don't think that's really affected Cornet's lap, perhaps put him a little less composed as he goes out the exit of that corner, sliding about from the rear, and that probably has lost him again a little bit of time, but he does move up to 5th place, so fairly decent from the Racing Point team at the moment, 3rd and 5th, and the same with Mercedes in 1st and 4th at the moment, and Cedric is someone I want to talk about definitely, because I believe he's been up there looking for pole positions and podiums all throughout the last couple of rounds, and he seems to have a lot of pace at the moment, and unfortunately, he's just had a bit of trouble with either mistakes from his own merit or just unfortunately being caught up in incidents he probably didn't want to. So I'm very intrigued to see what he can do tonight. He's the early pace setter at the moment.
Yes, of course, he was the Mercedes that looked the most likely to challenge Simon at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix before he did make a mistake. He admitted just completely on his own, spun off towards the wall, could only finish in 13th. And like a lot of drivers, a bit like what we said last season, there is some properly good pace here in F3. It is just the consistency that has been lacking, and it is that consistency as to why M Short has won the title, and he's now 30 points clear. Lakitu's had a couple of wins, Joey has a win, Black Phoenix has a win, Benny's had a couple of pole positions, Cedric, Chapalele, Simon have all had pole positions, so there are a lot of quick drivers in this field. You just need that consistency over the 12 races for this season and 10 races for next season, so any DNFs in season 28 are going to be even more costly. That is a very decent lap from Chapalele on the medium tyres, 126.024, less than half a second of the fastest car, puts him into 9th position.
That's a very, very competitive lap. Has anyone else done their best lap on the mediums? No, they haven't. So the fact that Chapalele at the moment is quicker than drivers on the soft tyres, that's very encouraging for the AlphaTauri team early on. He'll have 2 more runs probably to go as his teammates now coming down to 130R. But for Chapalele, he's quicker than his teammate already, although his teammate, by the looks of his delta, is about to go a few tenths quicker. For the AlphaTauri team, pretty promising so far, and I'm pretty sure they'll be enjoying that their 2 drivers right now are looking that positive, because they're still in a battle, of course, not really for too much, pretty much for 6th place with Ferrari, who seem to be a little bit edgy at the moment. Good start for Benny, but for Dynastic still needs to put a lap in, but Ginger goes 4th place then, so Chapalele, once he sets the softs on, could be an interesting session for him. Yeah,
it could be indeed. Lakitu's just come across the line, put himself into 2nd place as he looks to end the season on a high. We've got one of the Racing Points coming towards the 130R now. That'll be Lars just heading back toward the pits with Chapalele behind him. Let's go on board then with Dynastics, down in 17th place at the moment. He's had 3 7th places so far this season. One of them was in Abu Dhabi. They're his best finishers, very close to invalidating there as he comes through 130R, heading over the 2nd of the grid points on this race. You have the West Circuit, which is rarely used, and that is the grid there heading up towards 130R. No gravel like they used to be, so not as fearsome of a corner, even if you do end up running wide through there. Nice and tidy through the chicane. Doesn't look fantastically quick, though. I think he was aware for that. He's heading towards the pit, so I do wonder whether he did make a mistake on this lap. Less than 5 minutes to go. Lars is looking good to get his first pole position of the season, but only at the moment a thousandth ahead of Lakitu, and Cedric also within a 10th of the Dutchman in the Racing Point.
Yeah, Lars, obviously he's one of those drivers that will be looking just to put on a good show tonight, obviously looking to take that 3rd place in the championship, kind of having a bit of a resolution compared to last season where he did have a few moments which cost him pivotal points, which made him 5th place in the championship. But it looks like this season he's come back alive and he's just looking to take that 3rd place at the final race of the season and potentially looking to get himself on the top step of the podium like he did in pre-season. So for Lars at the moment, pretty positive, but look at that, look how close Lakitu is to that top spot at the moment, so it's going to be looking very competitive towards the end, as ever, here in PSGL F3.
Yes, Cedric was looking very quick there through sector 1, just cut Degner 1 too much so invalidates his time. And for Lars, it was really, the start of the season wasn't great for him. He failed to finish 3 of the first 4 races, got a 4th in the one that he did finish, but since then he's been in the top 7 every single race, 2 podiums, a 4th place, a couple of 5th places, a 6th and a 7th. He has been a really, really consistent driver, and it looks tonight that he's showing some good pace to maybe get his first pole position. Let's go on board with Simon then, see what he can do. He's had a podium in every single race that he's finished so far. 1 3rd place and 1 2nd place, which would have been a win, of course, if it wasn't for a penalty before. So he's been pretty decent pace-wise this season. It's just that consistency has been missing, and I suppose that happens sometimes when you come into a league halfway through a season and spend a bit of time as a reserve.
I guess Simon's sort of objective, this season, really is to see how he rakes up against these drivers, perhaps. And at the moment, seems to be a positive sign so far this season. Of course, he's put in great performances when he needed to, but again, consistency and perhaps that sort of getting unlucky at the wrong times and maybe making mistakes is, oh my goodness, that's a brilliant lap, really to blow Lars and Nikita away. 2 tenths quicker, pretty much. Actually, more than 2 tenths quicker than Lars in 2nd place. So that's a very competitive lap time for Simon. But he's shown that he's got the pace this season towards the end. He just needs to make sure that he can be more consistent, because next season he could be eyeing up a little bit more than just a few podiums. He could be eyeing up a few wins and maybe even a championship. Who knows? Yeah,
who knows? Does all depend, I suppose, as well, on which league you end up getting placed in. Coutinho completely butchers the first part of the final chicane, so that's invalidated his lap, and I wouldn't be too surprised if he's ruined his next lap as well. No, he's got away with it, but he's in 18th at the moment. Him, Dynastics and Black Phoenix, the only drivers yet to set a lap time. Most of the cars heading out now on their outlaps for their final run in the session. Can Lars get himself that 2 and a bit tenths ahead of Simon? Will we see Nikita or Cedric head out onto the circuit again? Because it looks like they are leaving it pretty late indeed. Can M Short manage to work his way up? He's in 13th place at the moment as he just heads out the pit lane. It is going to be a very intriguing session indeed. Looking very overcast here at Suzuka. It's managed to stay dry for qualifying, and we imagine, judging by the tyres that some of the drivers have gone on, for example, Chapalele on the mediums, imagine it's going to stay dry for the race as well. 1 minute 14 seconds remaining. We know it's going to be fantastically close. All 15 drivers that have set a time separated by just over 8 tenths of a second, as Alpha Faz looks like he's going to be one of the first cars to set a hot lap at the end of this session.
Yeah, interesting for Chapalele, really, going on to the mediums that he's ran on before, of course, since you can only run one. So interesting there for Chapalele. Definitely looking to either challenge somehow that top 10 as he invalidates his lap. That's his outlap anyway, so it looks a bit off there at the moment. But yeah, interesting strategy at the moment, but I guess he'll be doing all right at the moment. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how everyone does now, because they've probably seen Simon's lap and said, oh, wait a minute, I need to speed up here a little bit. And, well, I think they need to speed up quite a bit, as Garassi definitely won't be, because he's spun out of the exit of the S section. And at the moment, a lot of people on their laps. I'm very intrigued to see what the pole time will be here, or whether it'll even be beaten, as Simon seems to have quite a solid grip on it at the moment.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued to see whether Ferreira's actually going to be able to start his lap in time. He's got 3 seconds to go, and he's just passing the entry of the pit lane. 1 second remaining then, as he headed towards the line. Alpha Faz comes across the line to move up into 5th place. Great job by the Brazilian driver. I think there was another car off track there. That is Chapalele, so he won't be doing any higher than 14th place. It looks like he'll be even lower, because that is a fantastic improvement there by Pat. 6.5 tenths of a second puts him into 2nd place for now. Great job by him. Gonanen, he's invalidated his lap, so we're not going to see any improvement from him. What can Benny do? He's had a couple of pole positions so far this season. Can he get himself a long way up the order? Hugs that pit wall on the right hand side. He goes up into 2nd place, half a tenth off of Simon's time. Dynastics now the next Ferrari. He's currently 17th and yet to set a time, so as long as he keeps it clean through the final chicane, and that was a big slide from him going into that final chicane. Should expect him to move up the order here. How far though? Not quite so sure. Only up to 16th for him. The 2 racing points are coming through. Cornet and Lars. Lars heads across the line, improves time-wise, goes up into 3rd place. Cornet comes towards the line. He goes up into 6th. Things are really starting to heat up here. Gavassi, he's invalidated his lap. M Short's coming towards the final couple of corners now. His teammate crosses the finish line, moves up into 9th place. Championship winner M Short is currently in 15th. I think he'll be moving up pretty quickly further up the order. No, slows down again towards the line. I wonder if he's not quite doing a last to first challenge, but wanting to see how far back he could start and still get away with it. Venom and Ferreira can't improve, so they stay in 12th or 11th. And it is a second pole position in a row for the Red Bull of Simon. Didn't even really go out when the track was at its fastest.
Yeah, I think this is obviously just probably a track he really, really enjoys. And this is a track that a lot of drivers enjoy. Saying that, Pat really improved on his lap time. Very good for him, and the Williams team's had a lot of misfortune this season, unfortunately, for him. So I'll be rooting for him to have a good result, but can't be biased here. Benny coming out of nowhere, really. He's had some good performances this season, of course, that P2 in Britain as well, but in second place here tonight, he's definitely looking for something very strong. And as you said with M Short, sorry, I think that is the strategy tonight, and perhaps even for Chapalele as well, trying to do a sort of last to first sort of scenario, but it's not quite worked out. But Kagino has got that, so interesting if you can complete the challenge. But grid separated by 7/10 of a second. It's looking very, very close.
Yeah, it is looking extremely close indeed. M Short here saying that he slowed down too much. He was aiming for 11th place. So it does look like a lot of drivers are feeling like that alternate strategy could be the one. It just depends whether they can move their way up the order later. Obviously in the race, whether you are having a chance with an overtake, because there's only one DRS zone on this track, down towards turn 1, and unless you're already alongside the car you're wanting to overtake into that first corner, it is extremely tricky.
Yeah, it is very tricky. This track is very tricky to overtake in general. Obviously, being quite tight, as I mentioned. The only overtaking spots there really is the chicane really is the only overtaking spot. Perhaps the hairpin, of course, at turn 11. And maybe Spoon, you can go side by side. But despite that, there's not really any overtaking positions on this track, except from the DRS straight and the corners, as mentioned.
Yeah, and even that one into turn 1, you are going to have to be pretty brave indeed, or just hope the car in front of you's tyres are absolutely ruined. If those rears start spinning up coming out of the chicane, you will be able to get a good run on them as long as you've managed to save your ERS as well. And dirty air is quite a big feature around this track. There is a lot of downforce, there's a lot of medium speed corners. You do get stuck in with dirty air, it can be hard to cool your tyres down. It can also be hard to cool your engine down, so if you do have any spare fuel in your car, it might be a bit hard to use rich mode through some of these corners if you are stuck behind the car in front, because obviously once the engine gets too hot, you start going down on power and you are not really able to use it as effectively. And there is a few straights on this track where you can use it effectively, but the corners that we've already mentioned, 130R Spoon, the S's, are what makes this 5.807 kilometre blast through Japan famous. 18 turns with only one DRS zone, and we've already said the only figure of 8 track in Formula 1. And let's see what tyres everyone has gone for. Well, I was about to say no real surprises, but Ferreira, obviously, he's in the best place for that alternate strategy in 11th place, and he's decided to go on the soft tyres. Everyone in front of him we knew was on older soft tyres. Everyone behind Ferreira has gone for the mediums. This should be a fairly straightforward one-stop strategy for everyone.
I think that's a mistake for Ferreira. I think he didn't really intend to go on the softs, but there he is on the softs in 11th place there, but they're fresh softs anyway. So probably an interesting start for him, really in 11th place, because he will be quicker than the guys behind him. So really it's an interesting strategy. I haven't really done much of this track. I don't know how good that reverse strategy, which seems to be quite favourable, of course, with, of course, M Short saying he was aiming for 11th. I think it'd be an interesting one tonight. Drivers on the softs and the mediums, and with that sort of suggestion that reverse strategy is good, obviously with M Short and Chapalele particularly being two that challenge times on the mediums. Of course, M Short looking for 11th on the mediums, while everyone else set their laps on the softs. I think we could be looking in for a very, very interesting race tonight.
Yeah, I think we could indeed. Some very quick cars, Chapalele and M Short a bit further down the grid. Venoms did a fantastic first run in qualifying, just invalidated later on, so he was down in 12th position. You've got Simon looking for his first win. In fact, those top 3 drivers are yet to win a race this season. Rakito and Lars both looking, well, Keita is guaranteed second in the championship. Lars looking for a top 3 in the championship. Both wanting to end the season on a high. Get ready, ladies and gentlemen. Suzuka always seems to deliver classic races. 2005 has already been mentioned. Obviously, there was when Schumacher broke Ferrari's 21-year duck of winning titles in 2000. Senna crossed Mark 1 and Mark 2 in 1989 and 1990. And don't be surprised if there is a bit of wheel banging around here. They've really not got too much to fight for now. They can just sort of let off some steam and get ready for next season. Coutinho, the final car on the grid in 18th place. Can he manage to get his first points this season as a reserve driver on that alternate strategy, as Venoms is a bit slow getting into his grid slot? But once he lines up, lights should get ready to come on here to get the final race of season 27 underway. There we go, the lights are coming on now. We've got 5 lights. And we're underway at Suzuka. What are the starts like? It seems like a pretty decent start there by Simon. Cedric trying to get alongside Benny as well on the run down towards turn 1. But the Red Bull driver will stay in the lead. Cedric going all the way around the outside of Benny into the first corner. If he pulls that off, that'll be an absolutely fantastic move. And it looks like he has done as well. And we have got a full safety car already. Black Phoenix has been off the circuit. He's got some front wing damage. Cornet as well has dropped back with massive front wing damage. Alpha Fazl's lost a few positions. We're just playing, try and guess here who might have picked up some damage in those first couple of corners, because there's no retirements. We seem to have had a safety car before we've even got round the first corner. Alpha Faz looks to have got away cleanly without any damage. So Corny and Black Phoenix have clearly had, well, they've had separate coming together, because obviously they've both got damage on the front of their cars, but we have got a full safety car. Bit of a chance for those at the front, obviously, to relax and maybe just stretch the tyres a lot longer. But yeah, very interesting start there, and it seems like they were a bit trigger happy throwing that safety car.
Well, usually I'm quite aware of what's going on at the back, but I have no idea what happened this time. But obviously into turn 1, we do know this track is very chaotic for turn 1 and 2. It's a quick turn 1, and obviously then a very unpredictable turn 2. So I was expecting some sort of incident, but a full course safety car out of that corner is a very interesting one in my opinion. But yeah, brilliant start for Cedric though, I have to mention, of course. He got that move done around the outside. That was perfect. He was one of the people who interacted with what I said earlier, give it your all, and obviously he's showing us what sort of talents he's got in that Mercedes towards that end of the season. And is he perhaps eyeing up his first win? Because I mean, like you said, all 3 drivers, Simon, Cedric and Benny, they've all not won a race this season, so this could be a bit of a one-off moment, and they could be drinking that champagne on the top step of the podium tonight.
Yeah, they could be indeed. Cedric came very close towards thinking about coming into the pits, but decided against it. Venoms has got front wing damage. I imagine Konanen has as well. You're not really going to gain anything from pitting this early on unless you've got damage, because the hards are an absolutely dreadful tyre around here, and indeed, everyone that has pitted has got some form of damage. So Venoms has gone onto the soft tyres, Konanen and mediums, Black Phoenix softs, and Cornet back onto the soft tyres as well. So they'll all be making an extra pit stop in this race, and we wait for the order to get back to its correct order. The silver safety car, which we won't be seeing on F1 2021, we'll be seeing it in season 28 obviously, but in season 29 they're going to have to... Actually, how are they going to decide that? Are we going to see the Mercedes or the Aston Martin, or is the game just going to pick whichever one it chooses on that day in history?
That'd be interesting, really. I don't know. Really, I wonder if it's just going to be, I wonder if it's just going to be that sort of random sort of thing, perhaps, or unless there's some sort of like assignment to the tracks of what cars are featuring where. So, for example, the Aston Martin will most likely feature the British Grand Prix. I'm almost certain of that one, actually, to be honest. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Whether there'll be a choice of, what safety car you want, obviously it wouldn't matter too much. And obviously one of these sort of fantasy modes of people about driving the safety car, maybe that could be some sort of adaptation into it. But I mean, enough about F1 2021 modes. We're under a safety car. We're under a silver safety car, not a red one, which we'll be seeing next season. And again, I mean, that'll be interesting to see next season. An Aston Martin in front of you instead of a Mercedes. And perhaps people will be eyeing up that Aston Martin in terms of racing. An Aston Martin, of course, as it has its own F1 car next season, as a lot of people seem to really like the livery.
Yeah, that livery. Alpine seems to be a good livery. We're just waiting for the Ferrari one now, so unless William's story is a liar, obviously, that means Ferrari are getting sponsored by Rich Energy. Just say, ooh, Chapelele's coming into the pits. That's an interesting one from Chapelele. What strategy? Is he just thinking, oh, I can get myself a free fresh set of tyres here and start a bit lower down? Or is he putting on... Okay.
Intermediate.
Now, does that mean rain is for... Like, even if rain is forecast at the end of this lap, it's not going to be wet enough for... Like...
Has he made a mistake? Is he meant to go on hards or something? And he's accidentally gone on intermediates?
I mean, he's going to struggle catching up the safety car on those intermediate tyres because, trust me, there is no rain coming down at the moment. And surely, if rain was expected this early, Grassi, M-Shot, Dynastics, everyone else who's on the mediums would have started on the softs.
Yeah, a very odd decision from Chapelele, honestly. I don't know what's going on. Again, I reckon he's just made a false decision. I think he tried to select the hards and he accidentally probably tapped one to the right too far and he went on to the intermediates by accident. He is staying slowed around the corners. He'd be praying the safety car doesn't come in this lap though. Because obviously it stays out for 2 laps minimum. And I do have a funny feeling it's going to come in this lap. So Chapelele may have just made a humongous mistake. And his race may have just been blown well out of reach at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see what happens if the safety car does come in. He's keeping his distance to the back of the field. I wonder if that's just generally just trying to make sure the safety car doesn't come in this lap. We should see that notification at the bottom left hand of your screen if it does come in this lap. But surprisingly, the job... Oh, no, it's not. That was like for a moment the job was done for Chapelele, but it looks like it's not. Yeah, very interesting what's happened there. But again, I just think he's just made a massive mistake. Oh, Simon picking up a 5-second penalty there. And oh my goodness, the rain is actually coming down now. As soon as we get back underway, I've just looked on the onboard from Chapelele. This drop's starting to appear now. So is this somehow a masterful strategy or something that he's got completely correct? We'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
I think we will. There is one thing this game is slightly known for. When it comes up with the blocks of weather on the strategy screen, they always seem to go way too long and when the rain is eventually coming. So I'm guessing the Jeff for Chapelele has said rain expected any moment now. He's gone in. And you know what? If the safety car had stayed out one more lap, this could have been a masterful strategy. That safety car did announce it was coming in very late though. I think that's what caused the collision between Simon and Cedric, because Simon realised all of a sudden he had to stamp on the brakes. Ginger also picking up one as well, and they will have to serve that penalty. They will not be able to get it removed despite this game being a bit overzealous on penalties, and I would not like to be on the medium tyres right now as it does start coming down ever so slowly with rain. Grassi, the lead car on the mediums, then M Short, Alpha Faz in the middle of them on the moment on soft tyres. Not the best start for him in this race. He has gone down one position from his starting slot, and now he's just going to be in the slipstream of all these drivers. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2. I'm guessing that Chapelele's just overheated his tyres, spun into the wall. Now we've got a second safety car. Now we could see a lot of drivers come in and put those intermediates on.
What a difficult decision. I would expect drivers to come into the pits, but for what teams are very close to each other? Let's have a look here. Wow, okay, interesting strategy for Simon and Cedric. They both stayed out. Everyone else into the pits, as you do. Yeah, very interesting this one is, because the rain has just started, and this game could be very odd sometimes. Sometimes it can be, oh yeah, very quick, big shower, and literally it's wet conditions. And it also can turn around and actually just be the opposite and just be, oh, I'm just going to rain, but it's just going to be dry tyres for the rest of the stint or something. So this is a very split decision, but it looks like the intermediates are definitely the most favoured, but there are still 4 drivers out there who still think that it's definitely not going to rain enough by the end of this safety car period. So seems like Chapelele's decision to pit and how he spun has possibly cost him, potentially, of quite big things here, let's be real. in the end, because he definitely wasn't far enough to say he was a whole pit stop behind everyone when the safety car came out. Mind you, the safety car wouldn't have came out if he had retired, so I kind of contradicted myself massively there.
Yeah, Shapalele walked so everyone else could run. Although given the way he retired from this race, Shapalele spun so everyone else could run towards the pits. Put a set of the intermediates on. Lakitu's now the lead car on the intermediates. It is really not coming down that quickly at this moment in time. We're not seeing any spray coming off these intermediate tyres, suggesting that we're not ready at this moment. Obviously, we haven't even got to a point where DRS could be enabled or disabled, and we are under a safety car anyway, so we're not going to see that message come up, because that is normally a surefire sign that it is ready for intermediate tyres. But Simon, Cedric, Dynastics and Venoms staying out on track. I'm surprised one of Simon or Cedric, or in fact both of them, didn't come in, because they could have got rid of their 5-second penalty under the safety car, as well as obviously being able to maybe go onto the intermediate tyres. So they must be getting the information that it's only going to stay at this intensity, or it's going to stop very shortly, and it's not worth the risk.
Well, that's what I'm guessing. I guess it's sort of just a split decision so quick. Simon looked like he was entering the pits initially, if that makes sense. Like he was definitely going down that sort of path, and then he just kind of retracted it. So I think he's got trust really that it's not going to rain close enough really to go on or warrant the intermediate tyres, because obviously if you're on these intermediate tyres and the conditions are not right when you restart, those intermediates are going to burn out very, very quickly. And if they burn out, of course, on you, they're going to wear so much quicker. So the strategy, I think, here, possibly for Simon and Cedric, is possibly to come in and everything when the lap is right, where they may have to not make a stop again.
That is very true, but I still think you're going to have to survive another 5 or 6 laps, possibly. Your intermediates would last longer without getting a puncture, but it's normally, at most circuits, it's a pretty hard and fast road, and about halfway is as long as you want to be taking a set of intermediate tyres, and no more. They are obviously going at a very reduced speed at the moment. That is A, why the rain doesn't look as heavy, and B, why we're not really seeing any spray out on track at this moment in time. They're not pushing through the water at much, so we're not really going to know until we see the safety car come in what the track conditions are like. We've not got any data on what lap times we're doing. They're under the safety car, so they're all doing the same lap time. We are as clueless as you people, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment about what is the right tyres to be on. One thing that I'm fairly certain, though, it is going to edge towards a set of the intermediate tyres, and in fact it does look as though it is getting ever so slightly heavier at this moment in time, so this could be big bad news for those front 4 drivers, and fantastic news for Lakitu, who is the lead car on the intermediates. But he looks as though he's still got barrels full of understeer there as he tries to warm up the intermediate tyres, or whether they're burning up even behind the safety car, who knows?
Well, everyone's packed up now, so I do expect that the safety car's coming in this lap, and this is... yeah, there it is. Completely stole the words out of my mouth as soon as I said them. I seem to be making the decisions at the moment. But Simon at the moment will get us back underway, and this will be a really, really good sort of show of, is it time for intermediates or is it not? We'll have to really, really track this. But when is Simon going to go, more interestingly? He's warming up his tyres quite a lot. I'm just trying to see at the bottom there what his tyre temperatures are. Mid-80s, so it does seem to suggest that it's still probably enough for the dry conditions, and we'll see now how it happens. Lakitu's got a poor exit of the corner, perhaps already stating that the intermediates are worse, but they're definitely not far off, it looks like. They're not losing insane amount of time since he goes quite wide out of the exit of the corner, but it's quite a distance between all those intermediate drivers as they struggle for grip at the moment. But at the moment, doesn't seem like the intermediates were a bad choice, as it does seem like we're probably getting there soon, but they're now starting to really drop off, and perhaps the decision made by Simon, Cedric, Dynastics and Venom could be a very profitable one.
Could be indeed. Gondanainen, he's really nailed his cards to the mast. He's come back into the pit for a set of the medium tyres, so he's feeling that it's really not worth it at this moment in time, and he might be able to catch up that extra pit stop that he's lost. Lakitu has already dropped 3 seconds off of the 4 cars ahead of him, so this could be a fantastic chance for them. If it stays at this intensity for the next 3 or 4 laps, they could have made up that pit stop, and they won't have burned through their set of intermediate tyres, and like you said, Sam, might be able to go towards the end of the race if they are slightly careful. But it's Simon leading, Cedric in second place. They were obviously leading earlier on. Dynastics, who started 17th, is now up to 3rd position, and Venom's is in 4th, and he's looking all over the back of Dynastics at this moment in time. Oh, that's very close indeed, coming from 130R. Venom's got so much more grip there. Maybe we're at the point where the soft tyres on Simon, Cedric and Venom's can cope with it, whereas if you're on Dynastic and you're on the mediums, you might just struggle that tiny bit more.
Oh my goodness, that was very interesting for Venom, very ballsy out the exit that corner, going a little bit onto the grass. I'm just looking at the not a replay, but looking at one of the screens obviously that I've got on, just to make sure everything's in good traction anyway. But it seems like to be at the moment that we're a little bit at the crossover point though now. Lakitu, he's losing time, yes, but he's not losing like bags of time at the moment. He's losing about a tenth every couple of seconds. I think this is probably the best thing, but you look on board with one of the soft runners really, as I've just seen Pat is coming to the pits for soft tyres, so he thinks he could probably make the time as well. Definitely not work for Gon and Naaman. What's happened to Benny Traeger? He's losing a couple of positions. I think he may have just had a little bit of a moment, nothing too serious, but people coming into the pits retiring, and that was Gon and Naaman. But I think we're now getting over towards that sort of crossover point very soon, as it looks like the soft tyres and the mediums are starting to really struggle a little bit. So when these guys will pit, I'm not sure, because they do know they've got a little bit of an advantage still in those tyres compared to the Inters, and maybe it's probably best to stay out for 1 or 2 more laps before they come in.
Yeah, when you consider on the last lap, it looked as though they pulled away by about 3 to 4 seconds. On this one, when we went on board in Lakitu, he was halfway through the S's, and he's only lost about a second since then, so not losing as much time at this moment in time. DRS should be enabled at the end of this lap, and if we do see that sign that it's enabled, that will give us a massive clue. There is no sign that DRS has been enabled, so that says a lot to me, and Venom's is coming into the pits, which surely is going to be for a set of intermediates. He hasn't done a few laps in the dry on them, as Comate Alar's now trying to get past Lakitu on the run down to turn 1. This is going to be a very brave move in these conditions. Wasn't quite far enough alongside there, run slightly wide. He's going to have to give it another go, but thankfully are both able to carry on without any damage. And now we are seeing Lakitu is catching up to Dynastics. We're seeing that time drop. It was 5.5 seconds. It's now 4.8, 4.7. It'll be 4.6 extremely quickly as well. The intermediate tyres are now the best to be on, and Venoms might have called this absolutely perfectly if he could stretch his tyres all the way to the end, but that is going to be a big ask to get 19 laps out of them.
Yeah, I definitely agree. At the moment, he's definitely in a good position. If he can get to the end of those intermediates, which I think he'll be just conserving really more than anything, he knows he's in actually a really, really good position to win this race. It looks like they have really dropped off those mediums and soft tyres, and you can see that from the Lakitu really closing in. We have to take retrospective as well, is that these tyres and everything, when they are fresh, they are better, because Lakitu has burnt them out, obviously, for 1 or 2 laps. They're going to be in a much worse state to what Venom's would, for example, and you can already see that of how quickly Venom is catching up to Black Phoenix. He's pretty much gained about a second already on this lap alone on Black Phoenix in 14th, and he's closing definitely on those guys. I'm very intrigued to see how the end of this race goes, because if he doesn't have to make a pit stop again, he may have just played the system absolutely perfectly. Here come the leaders into the pits though now.
Yes, excitement. Cedric and Dynastics are into the pits. That puts Lakitu into the lead. 4 laps on his medium tyres. He's probably put more like 8 laps worth of life into them, just for really ruining them on a bit of a dry track at this moment in time. Lars is second, Gurasi third, Ferreira, M-Shot, Benny, Ginger, Coutinho, Cornet, and, well, now actually, sorry, no, Alpha Fez has managed to go down the inside into the first turn on Cornet. So the Renault up into 9th, the Racing Point down into 10th, then it is Black Phoenix, then Venoms. Look how much time Venoms has pulled off ahead of all those he was battling with, and Dynastics now obviously up into 13th place because he didn't have a penalty, but Venom's 7.5 seconds ahead of the Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, he's closing again. Like I said, he's now 4.2 seconds behind Black Phoenix, getting closer to him each lap by lap. And as I said about these tyres, you mentioned that they're around probably double the life that they would be if they didn't burn them out, and the Keys probably are feeling quite awful right now. He's got Lars behind him, and Lars will be very interesting. Indeed, he looks to have a lot more pace at the moment than the Key to. and looks to be eyeing up a move for the lead of this race. But Venom is 6 seconds clear of Dynastic, so at the moment, it's clearly at the moment Venom's to lose at the moment.
Yeah, and Lars there nearly going for a move down the inside into 130R. That's a brave one in the dry, never mind in these wet conditions at the moment, but he has clearly got more pace than Lakitu, and it'll be interesting to see whether Gavassi, Forever, and some of the others could start closing up to these. If it is Lakitu, maybe just being the first car, maybe taking it a bit more conservative, or whether Lars has just got so much more pace at this moment in time. ERS on, no DRS obviously because of conditions, and he can't catch up, so stays in second place for now. Alpha Faz though, he's flying at the moment in these intermediate conditions. Down the inside, he goes on Coutinho, gets himself up into 8th place. Not as good of a qualifying and start to the race that we would have expected from Faz. I'm just beginning to wonder, did he go for a bit more of a wet setup? Maybe just put a bit more downforce on, especially on the rear, to try and get that extra traction. Whether that is just now starting to benefit him. He passed Cornet last lap, he's passed Coutinho this lap, and Ginger is his next target. After Ginger, he'll have a bit of free air to maybe use whatever he's got left on these tyres. Lap 11 of this race though, and it is Faz's teammate Lakitu currently in the lead. He's just pulled away a tiny bit from Lars on this lap, who goes extremely deep there into the hairpin, gets away with it. It wasn't really an attempt at an overtake. I think just trying to find some grip on this track any way possible. He's in second, and Gavassi currently in 3rd position, but we know the top 11 drivers have to pit again. Maybe, just maybe, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th, if they're careful, might get away with it.
Yeah, I think Pat will be an interesting one to see, definitely. There's a little bit of battling going on in this. I think Cedric's been... something's happened to Cedric, I'm not entirely sure, but Pat will be an interesting one to see, in my opinion, on those intermediate tyres, because obviously he's much behind these guys, of course, and Venom, he's 10 seconds clear of Dynastic. I think Dynastic must have had a moment with Simon. In fact, all 3 of them probably did, because Cedric definitely has lost time to the 2 guys ahead of him. So for Venom, it's all playing beautifully for him, and I believe this is his debut here of the season, and it's the only round he's going to be participating in. So probably a dream of a race so far for Venom, and potentially could be looking at a win on first attempt. So hello George Russell coming in as the dream reserve for Lewis Hamilton. We've got Venom coming in as dream reserve for Joey at the moment.
Now that you've said that, I mean that means we're about 3 or 4 laps to go. Venom's is just going to get a puncture all of a sudden because he can't take those tyres towards the end of the race. I know that's a sore point, Sam. I know you don't want to remind him.
Yeah, I do not. Thank you very much for reminding me, though. I'm going to just sulk in a corner now for about 5 minutes, and I'll be back.
Just remember Norwich City, you'll be fine. Black Phoenix has managed to get his way up into 10th place. He's got ahead of Cornet then at the moment. So Black Phoenix slowly moving his way up the order. Not doing bad for no line, although in these conditions you do find yourself taking a few extra lines. And we are starting to see some wheel grooves in the track, suggesting that the rain is coming down pretty hard at this moment in time. Will we even have to get to the wet tyres? We're nowhere near that point yet. If it does get heavier, that is something to maybe consider towards the end of this race. Lakitu seems to have managed to find some extra pace all of a sudden, or whether Lars has just realised it is so awkward to follow around this track, especially once you are stuck in the spray. And we're going to get a bit of a picture of that right now. When you look at Lakitu, it's not looking too bad behind him at this moment in time, and Lars just a bit too far behind to really be affected by the spray at this moment in time. M Short trying to catch up to Ferreira. He's in 5th at the moment. It's all a bit spread out. We do see this in wet races, but things are going to happen at some moment in time, and it could well be those that are 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th at the moment, because Venom's definitely the quickest man out on track. He's already caught up to the back of Cornet and Black Phoenix.
Yeah, he's definitely looking in the mood now. If we look at the gap to the leader, he's only 11 seconds off him. If I am correct, the pit stop here, or going through the pit lane with a pit stop, is around 25 seconds, I would say. I mean, that's an estimate. I can't remember seeing the graphic earlier if it had the pit size, but it's definitely not 11 seconds, of course. I think the only one that really has such a short pit lane is Zandvoort, which I think gets done in around 13 seconds. So, and that's incredibly short compared to this one. Of course, but I mean, yeah, At the moment, he'll be looking very, very chill. And of course, if it was dry, he'd be looking at the DRS as well, Cornet. Not the case, but I think this will be an interesting one to see. He seems very rapid to these guys at the back, of course, because he's got much fresh tyres, and Cornet looks to be struggling by looking on the onboard. We'll just have to wait and see what Venom could do. Can he overtake the guys, or will he be held up enough to perhaps give Dynastics a very, very unlikely chance of closing right in? Or could we even see something happen? And we have seen something happen. That is Simon, who has had a bit of a spin out of Spoon, and that's kind of surprising, since he wasn't one of the guys that burnt out his tyres at the start. So generally his tyres should have been nice and clean and easy to run on, but I mean, Simon made the mistake and may have costed him a potential podium here.
Yeah, it could have done indeed. I wonder if he's just maybe made contact with Dynastics or lost it on his own on the curb. Coutinho in to put on a second set of the intermediate tyres. They will comfortably take him towards the end of the race. Should come out ahead of Simon, and he is trying to get a massive undercut here, so might be a good strategy by Coutinho if he can just hold on the others towards the end of the race when they are on faster tyres. And talking about managing to find some pace maybe on quicker tyres, Lakitu all of a sudden, he's pulled out 1.8 seconds on Lars, and it's not like Lars has made a mistake because he's not been passed by Gavassi, Ferreira and M-Shot. Lakitu finding some real pace all of a sudden. I wonder if because he wasn't stuck in the dirty air when it was still basically a dry track means he's just got a lap or two extra life left in his tyres, and everyone behind him is starting to struggle.
Not only that, I think he may have just been conserving, and because Lars wasn't able to make it by, he was able to conserve enough to potentially start putting in these lap times compared to the racing point behind him. And as I'm just watching Venom at the moment. I'm waiting for him to make a strike on Cornet. It's going to be very, very soon. But towards the front of this grid, Ferreira's running a good race in fourth at the moment, looking to potentially get his first podium of the season, I believe. At the moment, Lars, I think he is just backed off a little bit. Is he going to pit this lap? No, he's not. Coutinho did pit, so I do expect to potentially see some pit stops made, as there goes Venom past Cornet. We shouldn't be seeing too much more of them to battle in. Black Phoenix and Benny into the pit sense, so we'll be interested to see where they come out. They should come out ahead of Pat, I think, and maybe Simon as well. I'll be surprised if they don't, but maybe Pat has done the right thing really and gone on to the intermediates, and maybe his race is potentially saved. Look at that though, Black Phoenix at Cornet onto the wet tyres, so definitely does suggest to me that potentially there are wetter conditions coming and on the way. And looking also from Venom's driving as well, just going on board, I just wanted to add to this note, he seems to be very, very struggling to keep the car in a straight line a little bit now.
Yes, I was going to say Black Phoenix and Cornet there going on the wet tyres. Now the intermediates are a fantastic tyre and can cope with quite heavy rain indeed. It's just when there is some standing water. At the moment, there is still a dry line, so whether this is a bit of a risk from these guys, we'll have to wait and see what sort of times Black Phoenix can give. It might be the case that the intermediates at an optimal level are just ever so slightly faster, but if you've got the wet tyres on like Phoenix, Cornet and Simon, they do just give you a bit of confidence. And I think that says a lot that Simon's decided it was worth the risk of him coming into the pits, but Black Phoenix is just losing a tiny bit of time. So when will we see the front drivers come in now? Lakitu and Lars, Grassi, pretty much the entire field came in a bit earlier than ideal last time around, almost certainly because there was a safety car. When will they come in this time? Lakitu decides to stay out on track. Lars nearly ends up drifting into the pit lane there by a complete accident. I think they're just trying to hold on until it maybe gets to wet conditions. Alpha Faz is thinking now could be good enough. He's into the pits then on the wet. Well, to maybe put on the wet. So obviously Benny and Coutinho, they both put a set on the intermediate tyre, so they're hoping that this dry line stays and they might be in a fantastic position to get a good result.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, really, as Faz goes on to the intermediate. So a bit of contradiction for you there on that one in the end. Venom is an interesting one to really monitor at the moment, as he seems to be going quite well at the moment. 8 seconds clear. But again, what happens here now, it does suggest to me that we are going to possibly go on to the wet conditions. This could be a big screw up for Venom here. In fact, everyone could be screwed up quite heavily for this, because if they do start to come to life, those wet tyres, it could really put Lakitu, Lars, Garassi, etc. into a bit of a limelight here and potentially save their races. Simon comes into the pits. He's retired in the pits. I don't know if he's hit a wall. I don't think he has. Nope, he seems to be fine. But I think this is throwing Pat back into the mix though now, as he's right behind Cornet now, perhaps looking for a move as well. So a lot of different talking points at the moment, and I guess we're on for another unpredictable race, it looks like.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look like this track is ready for wet tyres at the moment. Black Phoenix has lost about 3 or 4 seconds in total to Coutinho, and just look at the traction here. Even on the intermediate tyres, Pat's just straight out-driven Cornet on pure traction there, straight round the outside at the exit of the hairpin. Job done, he's up into 14th. Most of the lead group are now coming in, and Lakitu, who was the race leader, is coming in for a set of the intermediate tyres, so he will probably be retaining the race lead. There's some wet tyres for M Short, wet tyres for Ginger. This is absolutely fascinating when you have absolutely no idea what the best strategy is. Looking at Ginger's intermediates over there, they were completely burnt out after 11 laps. Some of those were in the dry. I think Venom's is... He might be helped by the fact that the rain is getting heavier. I think he's going to have a really tough job, though, to get 18 laps now out of these tyres. He's got to do another 11, and he already looks like he is struggling a bit.
Yeah, he is struggling, and although it is fascinating for us because we just don't know what's going on, and for these drivers, this must be super stressful, mustn't it? Because they're coming back out on tyres that potentially they don't even know if they are actually even ready for the conditions yet. So we just don't know at all what's going to happen. Here. The wet tyres obviously have come out now, the intermediate, so could be still favoured as Venom looking on board and goes a little bit wide out of turn 11 there, so it does seem to suggest to me it's time to go over to the wet tyres a little bit more. There's a little bit more standing water on the outside of the line, where obviously it isn't the line you're meant to be taking, but for the line itself is still quite a relevantly dry line, so I don't see really any real need to come into the pits for wets at the moment, but I could be completely wrong, as it does seem to be getting very heavy, this rain now.
Yes, and a man who's started to catch up to drivers who are currently on the intermediate tyres is our champion. M Short is now the lead car on the wets. That might change completely when we see Lars come into the pits, which he has done now. Venom's is also in, and we'll wait and see what tyres they're putting on. It's full wets for Lars. And given these conditions, I've got to say, it looks like it's only heading one way, and that is towards the full wet. So Venom's is in as well. He puts the full wets on, as does Lars. Dynastics now leading this race. He's almost certainly going to have to come into the pits. Lakitu's in second. He is praying that the rain stops, or at least gets lighter roundabout now, because, like you said, Sam, there is a lot of standing water off of the racing line. It's not looking too bad on the line coming through the S's, but it's only going to get worse and worse as they go along, and it might just be a bit too much for even the intermediate tyres to handle. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. Lars is in third, Kurasi fourth, M Short up into fifth. He could be looking good for a podium no matter what happens here. Well, possibly not a race win. We'll just have to see what sort of pace he's got. He's still stuck behind Kurasi at this moment in time. We'll see what it's like on board with the Alfa Romeo driver. A, trying to keep it on track anyway, and B, trying to keep it on track in these very difficult conditions. Is M Short going to dive one straight down the inside there at the hairpin? The McLaren goes down the inside, gets the move done, and just drives clean away from him on traction. A couple of laps ago, Pat did a similar thing to Cornet. That time around, M Short's got the traction on the wet tyres. That says to me, the wets are now definitely the right tyres to be on, and maybe Dynastics has got a chance of getting a decent result here, because he'll be able to put on the wets, and those on the intermediates might just drop back.
Yeah, it's gone from being a fantasy win or a shock win, and we talked about this, didn't we, already, for Venom, and I mean, now it just looks like it's a mile away, unfortunately for him, so the frustration must be brewing in that Mercedes cockpit right there. But for M Short, it must have been a little frustrating having Garassi ahead of him, and if Garassi doesn't pit here, could be a little bit of a frustration for Ferreira, and he doesn't, in fact, but I think Ferreira should have enough pace here to get by. We'll have to wait and see, but Garassi has not given up that position. But M Short was caught in such an odd situation, an awkward situation. He's now 2 seconds behind Lars that he's got to try and catch up, and well, it looks like he's catching Lars a little bit, so he could actually be favouring from that. It's left him a challenge, and well, Lars, well, he's got to be in a little bit of a struggle. He's got Lakitu and Dynastics ahead of him, struggling for traction, so Lars is almost in the same boat as what M Short was in the previous lap.
Yeah, indeed. There's 9 laps to go in this Japanese Grand Prix. I wonder if everyone that's now gone onto the intermediates is thinking it's probably not worth me making another pit stop, especially if it is predicted to get drier towards the end of the race. We definitely don't look like we'll be seeing dry conditions as Lars sends one down the inside into the hairpin there. He'll have so much more traction. Very straightforward manoeuvre. He is now up into second place. Venom's getting ahead of Benny before we even get to the hairpin. He's up into 8th and could still get a pretty good result. We'll have to see how much he catches up to some of those intermediate tyre runners later on in this race. Dynastics in the lead on the older intermediate tyres, so if anyone is going to be super struggling at this moment in time, it is going to be the Ferrari driver after having put 8 laps through them tyres. And if he does come into the pits now, he'll be dropping behind Cuginio, behind Black Phoenix, and outside of the point. So he maybe has committed to trying to get these tyres towards the end of the race. We've had 3 retirements so far. Chapalele, who tried to go on the intermediate tyres just a lap or two too soon, got an Ainen and Simon. 8 laps to go now as Dynastics crosses the line. Is looking very good for Lars indeed. The only thing that could stop him is if this rain starts getting lighter now and the tyres come back towards Lakita.
Oh yeah, most definitely, or even Dynastics as well, but Dynastics, he'll probably be looking to pit though again, obviously, of course, on those 9-lap old intermediate tyres. Interestingly, M Short's in the same situation. They seem to be playing pass the parcel sort of things, do Lars and M Short in this sort of position for the S section. No real chances really to overtake here, and unfortunately for M Short, he's now stuck behind Akitu, who is struggling for grip, as there he almost lost the car, and there he was also looking a bit shaky on the rear end as well. So M Short very frustrating as he's just tapped the rear of Lakitu as well, just showing how much grip. But oh my goodness, I don't know what's going on there. Lakitu moving to the right there, suggesting he's just going to let him pass him, moving back over to the left. And I don't think M Short's got the move done here, so M Short's just going to be struggling behind Lakitu here. This is a bit of an interesting battle. Lakitu perhaps looking defensively again. Does suggest to me, in my opinion, that he is trying to go and try and take those intermediates to the end and probably hope for the rain to start to clear up a little bit. But at the moment, M Short just stuck behind, and this is just going to frustrate him even more. He's got 2 intermediate tyre cars to get through. Lars into the lead of this race now, and well, he's just got to clear out off into the distance now, doesn't he? I don't think M Short can gather that amount of time in 7 laps, but this is M Short, this is the champion. He's a champion for a reason, so we'll just have to wait to see.
Straight round the outside and the braking into the chicane. Fantastic move by M Short. Lakitu left him a car's width and no more there, but that didn't phase the McLaren driver. He's up into 3rd. Lars, though, is currently 3 seconds ahead. We've had a yellow flag in Sector 2, and that is Cedric, who's had a big spin there on the wet tyres, even giving you a clue how slippy it is. He's got big front wing damage. Another race for Cedric, where a good result, just mistakes and strategy haven't quite worked out for him at this moment in time. Lakitu, can't really blame him for defending his life at this moment in time, but he's almost drifting it through the S's at the moment, and the longer it goes, the more he's committed himself to this intermediate strategy. But I think it's just the fact that there's that many other cars on the intermediates might be the only thing that saves him here and helps him get the points, because he's really struggling on traction. He nearly lost it through 130R on the previous lap, and that is what allowed M Short to get a run on him. We've got another yellow flag there. I don't know whether that's Cedric having another tiny little moment, but it is looking very wet at this moment in time. Can Ferreira get the traction here on Lakitu coming out of the hairpin? This should be fairly straightforward move for the Haas driver. No, Lakitu is using his overtake. He's fighting back here.
I mean, look at that. Just look how much into every corner pretty much. He's counter steering almost all the time, and he's just defended against Ferreira there. That's brilliant from Lakitu. I really cannot see him doing much more than this, but suggesting what he's done on Ferreira there, including getting away from him quite considerably, have we just seen potentially it get a little bit better for the intermediate tyres again? And this does happen in this game. It can be very frustrating sometimes, and for Lakitu, it's a potential golden ticket as he almost drops it completely there, but I think Ferreira's coming back, so I may have just ate my own words there nice and easy. But Lakitu at the moment just defending his position, trying to keep as high as he can as possible without losing too much. But yeah, I can't see him defending his position from Ferreira and Ginger unless it does clear up a little bit. And well, I've got to say, on the onboard, rain doesn't look as heavy, so could we just perhaps see could Lakitu get what he wants and potentially look on for a potential win here?
No, the rain does look as though it's got a bit lighter. It's just he's going to have to try and fight through those intermediate tyres and pray that the wets start burning themselves up. M-Shot's still stuck behind Dynastics at this moment in time. He's doing a fantastic job on those tyres, and I hope for his sake he doesn't get a puncture, because that would be a massive shame here, because he is looking good for a podium as M-Shot does finally get it down the inside. Ooh. And look at that, on traction, Dynastics is as good as M-Short, and he's on 11 lap old intermediate tyres, so I think you might be right here, Sam. M-Short should get the move done, but I think we're in a position now where the intermediates are the best tyres once again.
Oh my goodness, how frustrating this must be for M-Short, and also Lars as well. Look how clear he is of everyone, and if it does get dry enough and everything, Lars may just not even get those wets to the end. They may just burn out. Obviously, of course, that's probably the likely scenario if that's the case. But also, these intermediate tyres, they'll be ragingly quicker than these wets towards the end at this point. And there's literally only a few spots coming down, and the track is just only going to get drier, particularly the racing line as well, because the spray is just obviously going to move the water aside, of course. And alongside that, these cars aren't exactly cold, are they? So the line is obviously going to get drier, of course, as the laps go on. And for M-Short, at the moment, he's still chilling, getting away a little bit, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a little bit of a drop-off now for these wet tyres and it comes back towards these intermediate drivers. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised indeed. Benny thinking about having to go back at Alpha Faz there down the inside into turn 1, but not able to do so. That is the Renault up into 9th, the Ferrari in 10th, Coutinho not too far behind. Black Phoenix had a spin on the previous lap. That drops him down to 13th place. This is going to be so fascinating indeed. Is it going to be dry enough for the intermediates to look good towards the end of the race? Can Dynastics 12 lap old intermediates hold out towards the end of the race? Even if it does dry up, has Lars got a big enough gap to end up winning this race? Who knows who's going to take the line in first, second or third here? You might as well roll a few dice, draw some names out of a hat. Anyone could win this with 4.5 laps to go, and that is absolutely fantastic. Hornet just picking up a 3-second time penalty there. It's still raining quite hard at the moment. Offline, there is still quite a bit of standing water. Z-Freaks are thinking that M-Short is so talented here that he can drive in the wet conditions and talking the YouTube chats, but M-Short's dad Martin just corrected him there that his son might be good, but he's not quite that good at this moment in time. I think Maybe the intermediates aren't better at the moment. They can just hold their own all of a sudden, because Ferreira's not dropping back. They're not really catching up to those that are on the wet tyres, such as M-Short and Lars. Maybe that's why Lakitu thought it was the best idea. Yeah, I think Lakitu, definitely an interesting one there, Lakitu, obviously, because you knew obviously drivers probably were going onto the wets by that point, and it does seem to me that it's a bit more of a in-between the sort of thing at the moment. There don't seem to be a quicker tyre to be on, which actually does obviously suggest that definitely the intermediates towards the end will be better. M-Shot's got clearer Dynastics though, and Lakitu hasn't exactly closed on Dynastics, so it's still definitely for the wet conditions for now. I'm just waiting to see here towards the end, because it's not raining, it's not even raining pretty much at all. It's actually only southern little spots and everything. So the track is gonna drastically dry up, and for the final lap of this race, we could just be seeing something incredible. That's all I'm gonna say. And I don't want to hype it up too much, because they did that with the Mexican Grand Prix, didn't they, a couple of years ago, where they were hyping up a big battle and everything, and in the end, I think it was just Lewis Hamilton winning by 3 or 4 seconds in the end. So it didn't really play out, so I don't want to hype it up too much, but we could be looking at something a little bit interesting if the way things are going continue to go that way. Yeah,
Lakitu has pulled out a bit on this lap to Ferreira. He's not really closing up to Dynastics though, who isn't really closing up to Lars and M-Short, so maybe them now being in free air for a tiny bit longer has just helped them ever so slightly, because obviously Ferreira spent that extra couple of laps tucked up behind another car. 3 laps to go then here in this race. Lars, who won the pre-season race in Bahrain, is in first place. M-Short, our champion, he's had 7 wins so far this season. It's been another dominant performance from the F3 champion in a McLaren, following on from Kalsper last year. Venom's just coming to the pits here. Does he think it's ready for... He's that sure that the wet tyres are terrible. He's going to do his final 3 laps on the intermediate tyres. I'm not quite sure they're going to drop off that dramatically at this moment in time, unless the sun starts coming out all of a sudden, but he's now down into last place and praying that the wets absolutely fall off the cliff in the final 2.5 laps. The intermediates, I think, are slightly quicker at this moment in time, but definitely not worth... He's got to rely on them now gaining 6-7 seconds a lap for that to have been a useful pit stop.
I mean, that's an interesting decision for Vettel. He's gone from winning this race to potentially risking even getting a single point. I mean, he knows there's nothing to play for, really, is there, for tonight? Obviously, it's his only race he's going to be in, so why not just experiment, see what you can do? I mean, you say that, but it could get to such a stage where it was USA last season for me in PSGL, of course, where with 3 laps to go, I made the decision to fit on the intermediates because around USA it was just getting too wet to stick on the medium tyres, and in 2 laps I gained an entire pit stop and won the race eventually. Came across the line by like a couple of thousandths ahead of the person who finished 2nd place, so it's not the potential of that, I don't think, but at the moment it definitely is some sort of option that perhaps could be interesting to see. But yeah, I can't see him making up so much time to really get back where he was, and I think that was a bit of a silly decision, really, because he may not be picking up a single point for the rest for this race.
Yeah, especially with that pit lane speeding penalty as well. Lars still in the lead of this race, 2 laps to go. He's not bothering to seek out the wetter parts on the track all of a sudden here, as Gavassi gets his way up into 6th place, working his way past Ginger, so we'll see if he's maybe got enough to catch up to Ferreira in this race. If those on the wet tyres were having to go offline, look for the puddles like we see in real life to try and cool down these tyres a bit more, I'd say they were in more trouble. Dynastics, although just thinking about it, Dynastics has really started closing up to M-Shaw all of a sudden, so I wonder if this lap is the big crossover point. You seem to have a mini crossover point where it just goes and goes and goes and gets slightly quicker, and then all of a sudden it's like a switch is flicked and the intermediates are now so much faster than the wet tyres, because Dynastics is just closing up every single sector here. I think M-Shaw has not got a chance of being able to stop these guys getting ahead of him. Whether Lars is far enough ahead, we'll have to wait and see. This is going to get very tasty for the final 2 and a bit minutes of this race. There's still 3 drivers, I'd say, in with an absolutely fantastic chance of managing to take a win here. If the wets last, Lars will win. If Dynastics intermediates last and Lars' wets start burning out, Dynastics will win. But Lakita's got much fresher tyres in him, and he might end up taking his 3rd victory of the season here. Pretty much no one knows how this race is going to end up, and this is why Bernie Eccleston wanted sprinklers. He said some pretty crazy things, but every now and then he came up with an okay idea. Lars rounds the final corner for the penultimate lap. One lap to go. Who knows what could happen here?
I mean, we've also got to think, of course, Lars, obviously, towards the end of this lap, he knows he's much slower than the drivers, but is he just going to try and just nurse his way round? He knows that he's quite clear of the drivers. I'm just very concerned at the moment. M-Shaw, well, for Lars, actually, not for M-Shaw, but for Lars, it's very, very good news here, because these guys are just going to get held up by M-Shaw. M-Shaw is probably a little quicker than Lars anyway, but with Dynastics and the Keto being held up, Lars has got a little bit more security, meaning that's a third of the track already gone for Dynastics and the Keto to potentially take the victory here, so that's a good sign already. But then it really depends if Dynastics can get the move done after Degner 2 here as we come up to turn 11. This is going to be the pivotal moment, really, to see if Dynastics could close up enough somehow with Lars. M-Shaw goes very defensive, obviously, as expected, and Dynastics has not looked to have got the move done. Very good news for Lars, I guess, at the end of the day. He'll probably be looking very relieved now towards the end of this race. However, M-Shaw probably completely the opposite. Stressed out, very annoyed perhaps that the tyres are probably not going to really make it to the end possibly, but he's got to really have a good exit here to make sure Dynastic doesn't get him. It's going to be very, very close here. Look at this then. They're going to be going side by side for 130 yard. This is going to be the one pivotal moment that we're going to see at the exit of the season. Like Fernando Alonso in 2005, Dynastics though is in the Ferrari and he's taken a McLaren with a Renault engine. As look at Lakito going down the inside, 3 wide into the final corner. I do apologise. Obviously, Lars has won this race. Pretty stellar race for the Racing Point. He ends the season as he unofficially started off, obviously, of course. Dynastics finishes 2nd, Lakito 3rd. Poor for M-Shaw, he really tried his best. Finishes P4 in the end, but oh my goodness, what an end to this race that we saw. What an overtake from Dynastics, first of all, of course, emulating what happened in 2005, I believe, with Fernando Alonso overtaking Michael Schumacher around the outside. But of course, funny enough, it was someone overtaking the champion at the time, of course, around the outside, ironically. But obviously, unfortunately for Dynastics, it's a little bit of foreshadowing we've got there. Is he a champion to be in PSGL next season? Who knows? We like to play our cards with that one. But yeah, what a victory for Lars is all I'm going to say. Brilliant victory for him. Just got to the line in the end of the day, but what a battle on that final lap.
What a battle on that final lap. I was looking back from Dynastics and just saw a McLaren and a Renault coming in at an extreme rate of knots and thought we were going to end up with possibly all three of them retiring and maybe Gavassi and Ferreira getting on the podium. But it is Lars who took the victory in this race. Dynastics, a fantastic job to only pit once. Let's not forget, started on the mediums, went to the intermediates to get second place, and another podium for Lakitu. They are your top three. M Short was fourth. Good result from Grassi to take fifth position. Ferreira is in sixth, Ginger seventh, Alphafaz eighth, Benny in ninth, Coutinho picking up a point in the final race of the season. Black Phoenix was 11th, Venoms 4 pit stops, looked as though he might win, somehow ended up finishing where he started, in 12th position. Cornet is 13th, and Pat, Cedric, Simon, Gonanane and Shapalele with the retirements. Those results don't even come anywhere near to telling the story of that race, Sam. What a way to end the season.
I mean, I said obviously previously in the chat earlier today, you know, the championships are done. Just go out there, give it your all. And oh my goodness, did they. Of course, Dynastics picking out a podium for the first time since Britain. Lars winning the race since the start of the season. And he's finally got that victory that he officially has got now here in F3, which he probably now is looking to line up potentially in F2C. And obviously, just that ending there, it was just so crazy, wasn't it? Dynastics around the outside at 130R, quite a spectacle in these conditions. It doesn't matter if Mjot was on the wet tyres, which made him at a disadvantage or not. It doesn't matter. It was a superb move, and it literally requires so much guts to go and do that at the end. And not only that, obviously 3 wide into the final chicane on the final lap. That could have been just a calamity for all, but in the end, they kept it respectful, and what an end to the season. What a podium. And I mean, as sorry I feel really for M Short for not getting a podium to round off the season, but obviously he totally deserved it. But wow, just what a finish to the season. Honestly, we couldn't have asked for anything better. Let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely was like we said, a fantastic finish to that race. So much stuff going off. It was, you needed obviously to be paying attention to what Jeff said, to be on the right tyres at the right time. And I think you maybe just needed that tiny bit of luck to A, either make your intermediates last and stay on track, or B, make sure that your wet tyres did at last. But he joined us in the pre-season race at the start of the season as a race winner. He's got his first official win of the season as he hops quickly out of the chat again. So hopefully he'll hang around this time round. It is Lars in the Racing Point. A first win for yourself this season. They don't come much tougher than that. What a race that was.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. My first win of the season, better late than never, mate. But yeah, I'm really happy.
Tell us about, we'll go for the second big decision. When the track was looking pretty wet, we said some of the drivers might go to the wet tyres. You obviously went towards the wet, then the rain started stopping again. Were you ever worried it was going to get too dry for your wet tyres and they'd just burn out?
Yeah, I think I'm quite lucky that Lakito was on Inters, because otherwise he could win. But yeah, really good strategy to go for the wets.
A fantastic end to the season for yourself, obviously. You won the pre-season race in Bahrain. You've won the final race here. That has got you third in the championship, sort of best as the rest after M Short and Lakitu's battles between you. Must give you a lot of confidence for next season. Yeah,
M Short and Lakito were too fast officially due to the line. But yeah, a really good season for me. So hopefully I move up to F3 to F2.
Sam, do you have any questions for our race winner?
I mean, obviously this season, you start the season the way it ended. Obviously, congratulations for the race win as well. But obviously, the question is really next season, are we looking a bit more than race wins? Because of course, in the first season, didn't get the race victories that we perhaps wanted to see. Of course, obviously, you definitely had the potential to win races last season. This season, you picked out one and unofficially two race wins. Potentially, are we looking at potentially a championship hunt next season?
Yeah, I hope so. I was a bit of unlucky at the beginning of the season with puncture and disconnect, but I was really consistent at the end of the season. So hopefully we can move to next season.
Yeah, well, obviously, again, congratulations on the victory tonight, and you started the season off the way. You ended the season off the way it started. A brilliant display from you today. You kept the tire going, and of course, you built up the gap. So, brilliant job tonight, and you deserve the victory.
Yeah, thanks for commentating over the whole season.
No worries, Lars. Cheers for joining us in the commentary box, and best of luck next season.
Yeah, thanks.
We're now going to get the man who finished second in that race. We said his pace has slowly been improving and he was starting to get a bit better, and that was by far his best race of the season. Probably the man who mastered the strategy better than anyone else today. He only did one stop. It was Dynastics. I imagine things were pretty nervous on those old tyres towards the end.
Oh man, what a race! Oh, I'm still shaking.
Yeah, tell us about it from your point of view, because obviously so much was going on in that race.
Well, actually, I got a personal record with me. I haven't got a single season in a single league without finish on the podium. So I got all in today just to get the podium. Trying alternative strategies and everything, and wow, so happy it succeeded.
Yeah, definitely did succeed. You started on the medium tyres, didn't pit under the first safety car, didn't pit under the second safety car either, and then were you worried your intermediates wouldn't last towards the end? Because from our point of view, it did look pretty borderline.
Well, I think they were on 72% at the end or something, but yeah, Lakita was coming really fast from behind on first inters at the end, so I was just praying I would not get a puncture like in the US. So it was really good.
Yeah, no puncture indeed. A good result to end the season. Does this give you a lot of confidence heading into season 28?
To be honest, I haven't signed up for the next season. Yeah, it's time for exams for me, so my focus will be on school for the next couple of months. So, but hopefully I'll be here again in 2 seasons.
Sam, do you have any questions for Dynastics?
I do. You kind of ruined it there by saying that you haven't signed up, sadly, which is unfortunate. But referring to your move, I've talked about it enough, really, but I'll talk about it one more time. That move on the final lap, round the outside of Emjor, of course, and that was rather kind of reminds you of what happened in 2005. Fernando Alonso taking Michael Schumacher around the outside. Is that potentially foreshadowing, potentially, when you do return eventually here to PSGL? Is there going to be a championship hunt feeling perhaps going through your mind?
Yeah, definitely. But well, yeah, it really depends on which side I will end up in. In last season in F4, I was a title contender, and here in F3, I've been a back runner. So let's see. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, brilliant race again, and obviously a well-deserved podium. First of all, I wouldn't really say you're a backmarker. Obviously, you proved it today, really. But yeah, congratulations on P2. Well-deserved.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, congratulations, Dynastics. Best of luck, obviously, with your exams, and maybe we'll see you on F1 2021.
I hope we will.
So that's the first 2 drivers in this race. We'll get the man who just about finished third at the end of that race, and I think a man who we thought was going to win it at various points there. It is Lakito. A good end to the season for yourself. So close. Possibly maybe even to winning that race if it had only gone on for another couple of laps.
Yeah, crazy race, to be honest. I'm still trying to calm down. Yeah, the decision for the intermediate tires obviously proved to be wrong. But as Jeff was telling me, like, come in for the wets, he also said it's gonna ease up in a few minutes. So I thought intermediates would be the best bet because towards the end the wet tires would overheat, as they did, but not quickly enough. Yeah, just P3 in the end.
Yeah, not quickly enough. Tell us about that battle towards the end of the race between yourself, M Short, and Dynastics. So I think M Short ended up doing Lars a massive favour, obviously stopping you and Dynastics, catching up to him, and it looked like it nearly all ended in tears at the final chicane.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. It was 2 laps to go or something when I caught them, but it was just how was the situation again? Was Dynastics trying to overtake Short? Yes. Yeah, and I was pushing him, overtake him, so that I could overtake him too. And he obviously waited just into the final lap, final corner, and they slowed themselves down so much that I could have a run into the final corner, and then Short just moved right while I was alongside and pushed me half on the grass, and then it all came together, and in the end I just edged out in front. But yeah, we're just trying to resolve that in the chat too. We both weren't too happy with the situation, but I like my P3.
Sam, do you have any questions for Lakito?
I think you covered them up all perfectly. So really, just congratulations on the podium this evening. And again, probably one of the most stressful races you've ever been in for a little while. So obviously, big ups to you. And obviously, you could perhaps chill out a little bit more now that you've got the race done and you've got probably the result that you would have just preferred.
Oh yeah, for sure. Thank you, guys.
Well, congratulations, Lakito, on the podium and on the season as a whole.
Yeah, thank you.
And that, Sam, that is pretty much it. What an amazing end to the season. Yes, for title, maybe. M Short, obviously, fantastic dominance at the start of the year. If Martin's still watching, maybe he's earned himself a bit of a treat for that, especially if he's had to go back to school today as well. It's a bit of a day tinged with happiness and maybe a bit of sadness as well. But those final 2 races show there is some really fast drivers here in this field, and season 28, for those that have signed up, should be just as close.
Oh yeah, definitely. And obviously you've got the fun bit, haven't you? You've got the best of the lot, haven't you? Theoretically, so that's going to be exciting for you. But no, really, honestly, this season's just been mental. Towards the second half and towards the end, it's been very unpredictable. And obviously, we have to credit M Short. His season's just been superb, of course. And even towards the end of the season, even this race, you had to really remark like how he defended his position there, and obviously narrowly missed out on a podium. And of course, if it weren't for Dynastics going around the outside, of course, he may have even got that podium, because that may have put him off a little bit in that scenario, which obviously opened the door for Lakitu. But what an entertaining season, and particularly the end of the season. The last 2 races have been superb, no doubt about it, and particularly much better than that Mexico race that we had, which was unfortunately probably not the best of races, but the last 2 have been absolutely superb, and it's a great advertisement for how close and how good like league racing can be, and particularly PSGL, of how close PSGL is, because it is insanely close in this division. And just don't let a championship fight being over distract you from how close and how competitive these fields are.
Yeah, it has been extremely close indeed. That's pretty much it then for this entire season. There is still the final F1 race to go, where of course Sparks has ended up taking the championship, and I think Haas have they might have already got it secured, but they've almost got the Constructors title secured as well with Sparks and Gamer. That race is underway right now on the PSGL channel with a slightly different commentary duo once again. Badgerman, as usual, and Jake Warrior joining him in the commentary box. And looking at things at the moment, as my iPad is extremely pixelated, looks like we've got a full wet race there as well, with Gamer, Matthias, Sparks, and Thyman Juiced currently your top 5. So make sure to check that out. They are on lap 3 right now. PSGL as a whole is taking a bit of a break, and that timing has worked out absolutely perfectly, as the calendar should have now appeared on stream all of a sudden. Bahrain Short will be the first races of the season. It's not been confirmed what will be replacing Formula Performance, but the plan is for something different. Bahrain, Singapore, Austria, Belgium, Netherlands, France, Canada, Japan, Azerbaijan, Brazil, the final 10-race season on PSGL. And as Sam has mentioned, I'll be taking you through with the F1 action next year alongside Dan Field. Thanks you for Sam for being a fantastic commentator partner all the way throughout the past 2 seasons. It's fair to say we've seen some pretty enjoyable races between us.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I'm excited for whatever I'm doing next season because I'm going to be commentating somewhere. I just don't know where yet, unfortunately. I'll just have to wait for that. But I'm very intrigued already for next season, particularly with Bahrain Short. It's a different track, isn't it? We've seen obviously pretty much every track this game except from Azerbaijan here in the PSGL season. That'll be something that will be ending the season, of course, but. I mean, having Bahrain short at the start, it's been sort of like a controversial talk for a while. Should leagues use the short circuits? And I guess Bahrain short is probably the most appetizing, I guess. It looks probably the best one. And we do have to remember, that's more of an endurance sort of race as well to start of the season. 100% all ready to go. And setups-wise, it's going to be very intriguing to see as well because no one really has thought about creating, proper setups for that track and everything. And I guess a lot of the top guys probably not even familiar with it. So very intriguing. But this season's been mental. Last season was really good as well, of course. Very entertaining races from the past and the present. And of course, next season, I don't expect it to be any different, to be honest.
Yeah, next season should be absolutely fantastic. Thanks once again to Sam. Thanks also to all the drivers for the season. Thanks to TRT Esports, who gave prizes worth a total of £200 to the winners of the PS4 and Xbox top tiers. So I'm sure Sparks and Smasher have probably smashed their way through that pretty quickly. Thanks most importantly to you guys, the viewers. You're who we do it for, and hopefully we'll see you again in a few weeks' time for the start of the final season on F1 2020 Season 28. But for myself and Sam, have a very good rest of your evening, and good night.